Hey there, it's Christian from 7 Gaming Network, and I'm here with the second part of our Genesis of a deck, evolution of a deck, and we've got, as you can see, we've got Vader, and we've got Royal Guard, and we've got a cool selection of cards that we can be looking at having a play with to consider including in this deck. So let's have a look at, I'm just going to go through the process here of so you can see why I include certain cards in like an initial build of a deck. Now of course we will, I'll record a couple of games and you can see how it sort of works out, and then I'll go through to a tweaking stage and process so you can see how I evaluate how a card's doing, whether it's working, and how we can then either change it in or change it out, with the whole idea for this being almost giving you the tools to be able to go away and do this with whatever idea it is that you have for building a cool Destiny team. I always organise my cards in sort of groups, in sections, and this really helps when I'm deck building. So here I have my I do upgrades in the middle, events on the left, supports on the right. And the upgrades in the middle at the top are those that either do damage or, in a broader sense, advance my strategy very specifically. Okay, so let's have a quick look at some of those cards. Some of them you can see we know are really good, strong, solid cards. Mind Probe we know is a really good card, but we're not just assessing whether they're good cards or not. We're trying to assess them in the shape of the overall build. So some of these cards we'll come back to, and what I tend to do with the initial pass over all of these is think, like, that's an auto include, like that's got to be in the deck, and I go through each of these groups and can say, well look, that card's just got to be in there, I can't leave that one out. Once that almost makes me like a new pile or a new certain amount of cards I've got left, spaces I've got left, that I then can go back over all these different groups and fill in the spaces that I need. So looking at this group, the cards that I am going to say straight away I think are some of the strongest and going to be the most powerful in our deck is Kylo Ren's lightsaber. So I'm just going to put 2s on those cards that I know I'm going to definitely want more of in my deck. The other one is Chuffin Vibro Knife, because I think this card is bonkers good. Ambush, and then it goes straight through shields, is really great, and of course it's given us some damage that we want as well. So those are straight up 2 ones that we're going to have for definite in the deck. Now I also really quite like the lightsaber pike, quite whether it's a 2 of or not, because it is a 3-drop, is I'm still not sure. But because I like it and because it's a new card, I'm going to stick 2 of it in at this stage. Now again, I'm not saying that's because I think this is a really essential card and a brilliant card. This is partly testing, and I want to test it out and see what it's like. Now, Makashi Training and Force Training, they've both got +2s on. That's good. Force Training does have the focus on as well, but Makashi Training is just, it's more specific. It's more designed for one thing, and that's really to try and push damage out. Yes, it's got this secondary action that we could use to save a character's bacon if we need to, but really we're including Makashi Training because it's got 3 damage sides, and I like it as a 2-drop. I think it could be quite good. And again, because it's a new card, I am happy to try it out. The other thing I really like about it is it's an upgrade ability, and therefore we can get it out with Sith Holocron, of course. So I'm actually going to go with 2 of that. We can't Holocron pikes and lightsabers, but or Vibro Knives, but we can Holocron that. For now, I'm going to keep Force Training off to one side. Maybe I'll include it, maybe I'll come back to it, but I feel like these are 4 really strong cards. Now, the next set of upgrades that I do then is defensive, or these are cards that are more control-y or, yes, defensive, going to keep your characters alive. Now there's a standout card for me in this, and that's Force Throw in this. Again, we're running Sith Holocron. To me, that feels like a bit of a no-brainer, that Force Throw not only deals damage when it chucks something, it removes its mitigation, it's just lovely, okay? So we're having that one in. So a couple of these other cards, the Force Illusion, I think that's something that again could be really helpful in this deck. I feel like Rise Again is probably just too expensive. We're going to play quite a lot of upgrades. We're going to play quite a lot of pieces of equipment. Right now, Rise Again just feels too expensive. Now, if of course we go through a few games and I suddenly find, do you know what? I've actually got loads and loads of resources here quite frequently. Well, then I might start thinking, do you know what? I've got resources and Vader just died. Let's have Rise Again in. So we might come back to it. Now I am the master. Feels like, I mean, it's not even an upgrade ability. I'm not going to holocron it out. It costs 1. It's really just there about defending against it's mitigating damage, and I love the art, but I just don't think it's going to go in. So we'll take that out. Force Choke is another one that there's only 2 die faces on it that we're really interested in, and that just feels like it's going to be too slow when I could spend 2 on a Makashi training, or 2 on a Force Choke, or 2 on a Vibro Knife. Like, Force Choke's just going to lose out every time, so I'm already uninclined to include it. Rise Again, we talked about that one, that's why I'm going to put that to one side. And the Force Illusion, I'm just going to include it. Look, let's and I think possibly for a 2, let's see, because it's upgrade, its ability, I can holocron it out, and of course we can then overwrite it too. Now the next and last line of upgrades that I do then is what I call the utility group. So this is those kind of cards that don't necessarily do specific damage or anything like that, but they help us in some way. They speed things up. They help us to maybe generate resources. I'd include a data pad in this section here. Now, Force Speed is a no-brainer. It's one of the most powerful cards that's in Destiny. And we want to go fast and do lots of damage, so Force Speed's in there. Holocron, again, another of the most powerful cards in Destiny. We're going to include it. We're playing lots of we're playing some abilities, and this is 0 card with focus on, with resource. It's going in there. Now, Lure of Power is it's an interesting one. We're paying 2 to get ourselves, hopefully, some modifications or a bit of resource. I just get the feeling that whilst it might be useful, I'm not convinced that it's spending our 2 resources, which probably on average is going to add maybe 1 damage to one of our Vader die or something, is in any way comparable to a Makashi training, or the impact of a Vibro Knife or a Makashi training, or even just actually playing a couple of our events, which we're going to go through next. So I'm going to stick that over in the pile here. Now we've only got 1 support. It binds all things. Before you play a blue upgrade, well, this one's picking itself. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in already. So yeah, let's get 2 copies of that in and see how things develop. So that's looking at the upgrades. We haven't dealt with these 2. We're playing Sith Holocron. Let's stick Mind Probe in, and that might go to a one of potentially. Lightsaber could be quite good getting stuck on a Royal Guard, because we're going to be guardianing with him. It'd be nice to make him a bit more impactful when he does roll in with his Guardian. So a lightsaber that's redeploying often could be quite good, and we're getting a lightsaber for 2 with it binds all things. It might really work quite nicely in there. So let's include it. And that lightsaber's doing unblockable damage as well. With the Vibro Knife, we're just getting more sources of doing unblockable damage. We like that. So let's have a look at these events. And I have to say that when it comes to this deck, I think the strength in this deck really is going to be less in the upgrades and more in all of the ways that we have now to force through our damage and make it happen. Lightsaber throw is just brilliant. If you have one or more dice showing melee damage, well, I'm hoping we're going to have quite a few dice showing melee damage at some point. Deal 2 damage to a character for 1 resource. It's just great. So we're going to have 2 of those in. Straight up and down. Now, and how I've organised these, just so you know what's going on here, I tend to put the event cards in the top left that advance specifically my win condition in some way. So whatever my main strategy is, it's really helping with that. Our main strategy is dish out damage really quickly. I believe these cards are going to help us to do that. Now you will die, pay 1, resolve one of your dice to show melee damage. Really cool. That's going to help Vader, when he frustratingly rolls his 2 disrupt, for us to be able to turn it into 2 melee damage, which is really strong. So damage out of hand, really lovely. Because there's also resolve as well. It's almost like having a not quite as good force strike right there for us. So we'll stick 2 of those in. Now here's an interesting one, the price of failure. And defeat one of your characters to ready a character. This is the kind of card that straight away, very obviously, we're more likely to only want 1 of in the deck. Because when we're running a single Royal Guard with Vader, we're only going to defeat that Royal Guard once. I mean, if it's something we wanted to see really quickly, well then maybe we would include a second one of it. But this is a classic one-of type include. And we only want to see it late game. And I think it could be terrifyingly good. I think it could be terrifyingly strong. I'm not sure whether it's really efficient, or I think it's going to be quite specific as to whether it's going to really come good in a deck like this. I often feel like this is the kind of card that you see early, or you see in your opening hand after you've mulliganed, and you sort of, give a big wah 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 internally, because you think, I'm just going to be discarding this for a reroll. But late game, it could be an absolute game changer. Do we even want to get to late game with this deck? Not really. Mid game, it could be a game changer. Let's keep 1 in. Let's keep 1 in, and we may cut it when we come to our final selection. Momentum shift. Move a shield from an opponent's character to one of your characters. Essentially deal a damage and give yourself an extra point of health. That's a swing of 2 points for 1 damage. It's pretty good. However, we're running Vibro Knife. We have a lightsaber, does unblockable damage. Our next card is Intimidate. Oh, I'm not so sure we're going to want to include it, especially at the cost of 1. We'll take it out for now. But who knows? That could be a card that finds its way back in time. Our next card is Force Strike, which is just fantastic. It's Vader, it's deal 3 damage, essentially, out of hand, no matter what Vader's die says. So we're definitely having 2 of those. Intimidate. It does potentially up to 3 damage. I'm just going to do 2 on it now, and we'll go from there. No Mercy. It's just a finisher. It does so much damage. We've got loads of blue cards. We're easily going to be able to fuel it. No Mercy is a no-brainer in this deck. So, the power of the Force. We could have a lot of blue upgrades, look. Now, we've only got 2 characters, so our max is 6, although that's pretty crazy. Knowing that the meta now is changing to being a little faster makes me think perhaps we're just never going to get to that many upgrades out. So then I start thinking that realistically this is going to go off for 3. Resolve one of your dice, treating the value as equals to the number of blue upgrades. Like a 1 melee goes to a 3 melee, a 1 resource goes to 3 resource, could be quite nice for us. We also have a few specials. That's not going to be helpful with those. I'm not going to include it for now, But I think if I'm playing games and I'm looking at the board thinking, I've got 4 upgrades out here, I should be playing Power of the Force. And this is another thing that we should be doing when we play games with our deck builds, is thinking also of cards that we haven't included as we're playing, thinking this would be brilliant here. So we'll take it out for now and use the Force, spot a blue card to turn the die to any side. Now it costs 1, okay, unfortunately it's not a resolve, but it can work as bad mitigation against our deck. So I really like the fact that it allows us to get more damage. Remember, I talked about these event cards allowing us to push through this damage with good with the Vader dice. I feel like let's do it. Let's stick 2 in this build and we'll see. So here is our sort of utility events, if you like. Boundless Ambition, draw cards up to your hand size. We could do quite a lot of discarding to reroll, but my problem here is I get the feeling that we might not do very well for resources in this deck. Granted, if we see a Sith Holocron early and we're able to get a couple of things out, maybe we could, but we cut Rise again because I just don't think we're going to see that many resources with this deck. So I kind of feel like we're probably just going to need to be a bit faster. Again, this is a card that could really help us. If we get to draw a whole load of cards and keep rolling our die to get our Vader damage. But having said that, we've got loads of event cards that allow us to get our Vader damage or even Royal Guard damage through. So I'm just not feeling that card in this deck. But we could really need it. I mean, that could be just brutal if we end up playing. Imagine playing the Price of Failure. Vader untaps. We roll this dice again. We're going again. Discarding to re-roll, and then we Boundless Ambition. Oh, I mean, it could make for just this horrific turn of Vader absolutely maximising damage. Oh, it could be really good, but I'm going to cut it. I'm going to cut it for now, and we could come back to it. Enrage. Deal the damage to gain 1 resource. It's probably one of the fastest. It feels like a fast card. It's a good way of getting resources, but we're running to a lot of cards now, and I don't think that's directly playing into our strategy. But it is a potential meta, meta call. If we come against lots of decks that are doing disruption and really stopping us from being able to play our nice resources, because I don't mind enraging and dealing my Royal Guard 1 damage to be able to then play my 4th strike. But again, I think it's really going to be down to the meta as to whether I include that and if I'm needing to overcome lots of disrupt. So I'll leave it at for now. Close Quarters Assault. I mean, this could be really nasty. This could be 3 or 4 discard on my opponent. Oh, that does feel really nice. That does feel really nice. Do you know what? I'm actually going to... Maybe this could be some interesting little tech that I chuck in here to just deal with control decks, or maybe even in a sort of the mirror. I mean, if I got hit with this when I'm holding all those great events, I'd be raging. So I think a Close Quarters Assault. Let's include it as a one-off, and we'll see. Okay, so and now we come to our mitigation suite. So these are the bottom left corner is always my cards that I use for just mitigation, for a bit of staying alive cards. Feel Your Anger is a brilliant card. So we'll go with, put 2 of that in, and Isolation is another great card. And Deflect is going to be amazing. Deflect even does damage, so we really like that. It's got the limitation of it being arranged damage only, and that's what, it depends. If we've got quite a bit of space for damage mitigation, although looking at that lot, I don't think we will, then I think Deflect is something that you can run. Otherwise, if you're only going to include, say, 4 cards for your damage mitigation like that, although of course Use the Force could double up in that way as sort of soft mitigation, then I probably wouldn't include Deflect in that. Let's have a look at our spaces. So let's count it out for the moment and where we're at. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. That's 40 cards. So we're considerably over. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 22, 26, 28, 32, 4, 6, 8, 40. It's a lot of cards over. We've got to cut off it, and I love to play with two ofs, mostly as and where I can. So I think what we'll do is at this point we'll stop this video, and then I'll go on and make it another section, if you like, for actually crunching it down and making these final decisions to really put this initial build together. Hope you guys are finding this interesting. I hope you're finding it helpful, as I just sort of blurt out the stuff that's going through my head as I'm doing the deck build. Just a quick shout out to swdestiny.com. If you don't check them out already, do so. They are very kindly hosting 7 Gaming Network videos, but of course they've just got loads and loads of great content on there that you should find really helpful. And also pointing towards the Knights of Ren Discord channel. If you haven't got involved in Knights of Ren, they have a really great podcast which you should listen to if you want to do any sort of competitive Destiny. And they also have a really good Discord you can get involved in with loads of great chat going on, and you can get hold of me on that. And just to let you know as well that if you're finding this kind of stuff helpful, I've actually started up a Patreon. So there's some cool rewards for you if you want to get involved in that and maybe have a little bit more sort of contact with myself, and pass ideas past me and things like that. We're starting to build a little community around that Patreon. And of course, if you're contributing anything, well, that super helps me to justify all this marvellous amount of time that I put into making these videos. Until the next one, which isn't going to be very long, I'll be quickly posting this up after this one. Keep building your decks and keep going through ideas, and hopefully you're finding this helpful. So until the next one.